And we're back in the sack.
We're not really.
Not smoking crack. But content we do not lack. It's Gridiron 360. We are talking NFL free agency. It's Dave. It's Bill. We are continuing our journey down the Mississippi. Or down the Chattahoochee. To our local team here in the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta currently sits at the number 16 pick in this year's 2020 NFL Draft. And they are 30 out of 32 teams with cap space in $4 million. Let's just go with a big, oh boy. Oh boy. To say a word like headed for, or a phrase, word, disaster, headed for disaster, I feel for my local Falcon fans. Yep. I mean, like, I'm not pleased with my team, the New York Giants' performance as of late. You're talking about a team, the Falcons, that, 2-3 years ago was in the Super Bowl? Was it 3?
3.
And, man, of all 32 teams in the NFL, talking about where the arrow's pointing, this one, I'm not even pointing 45 degrees downward. I'm pointing 90 degrees straight down.
Yes. This
let's
is a team
grab
catastrophe.
Let's grab a 50-pound dumbbell and go to the top of the Empire State Building and drop that fucker off the side.
Yep.
Excuse my language. They're in deep trouble, deep shit trouble. I feel for my Falcon fans that they're under cap hell. They're not in a position draft-wise where, I mean, they could get a good player, but they're not in a position where they could get somebody that really could change the face of one side of the ball for them, or that they could trade back and collect some capital to maybe work more, because that's really what they need. They need to have a high pick so that they can drop back, way back, so they could collect some capital, because they need everything.
Let's give some history as to how we got
All
here.
right, let's go into it, because we had a list we tried to put together of their needs: D tackle, O line, and then we just stopped and put cut/trade players, because they need everything. They need to, rebuild is an understatement.
So here is where fundamentally an organization can make a mistake, and
keep in mind they just re-upped their head coach.
That's where I'm going to get to. Yeah.
And their general manager. Sorry.
No. You didn't steal thunder, but they did. So here's the situation with the Falcons. The Falcons got ownership that, if you don't know the Atlanta area, Home Depot was kind of probably the premier first big company
in this city.
From a building
outside
standpoint.
of Coca-Cola, but
Coca-Cola has been
more
a long
recently,
standing. And really at the turn of Atlanta's explosion in growth, Home Depot was kind of in one of the newbies that has now become
the big box,
the centerpiece with
construction
Coca-Cola
store type place. When that whole thing lifted off, really due to Home Depot, it was kind of in tandem with starting to see this organization go in a direction where their arrow is actually maybe pointing 45 degrees upward.
And Arthur Blank, the owner, had a lot of hand in the development of Home Depot. So here's a guy with flush with cash, personally able to buy this team, and he did some really good things early on. One of the things I remember him doing is lowering the season ticket prices to a very, very reasonable. I think it was like $300 a season starting out.
Yeah, I mean, just to make sure the stadium was sold out, filled for every home game.
Yep.
More recently in the rebuild of the stadium with Mercedes-Benz. Keep in mind, Arthur Blank also owns the Atlanta United, the MLS team here
very,
locally.
very popular.
They're in their second year. Their first year they come out, they win the MLS Cup. A lot of fun. Football guys that we are. I've been to those MLS United games. You're on your feet the whole time. A lot of energy. It's a lot of fun. Now, winning helps.
Yep.
They've got a nice little fan base in that stadium. Mind you, they block off the top tier of the stadium for those games, but the rest of the seats
keep the crowd low and right there, and they're good.
Are sold out. It's actually a pricey ticket. I mean, cheap seats can cost you $75+. But it is very exciting, especially for people who like, excitement in football. I've thoroughly enjoyed following the United as much as I do, which isn't a lot, but enough, and going to those games. And I guess all that to say, that's another baby of Arthur Blank. And before you continue, Arthur Blank's a good person. He's a little too hands-on as an owner for me, but not Jerry Jones hands-on.
No, he's a guy that I truly believe this about him. I believe he believes his team is his family.
Yes, he's a good man. He is
very,
a good man.
Very loyal.
Yes.
to his players.
He leaves it up to the people he puts in place to get the job done, rather than interfering a la Jerry Jones.
His interference, if I was to classify his interference, it's more in the idea that he is a family guy, in the sense of he wants to take care of his players, and I think we're going to outline where some of that has come to, and not just but his staff, like his GM, his coach, and that's kind of what we're going to get into. So
and that and the fact that he is an owner that will be on the sidelines a lot of times. Fourth quarter of games, you'll see him on there now. He doesn't interfere, but I can tell you,
if your boss stood behind you all day,
when you're losing, he doesn't have a face on that. I would want to have to speak to after the game behind closed doors. I'm not an outwardly angry, emphatic type guy. I don't know personally the way he handles business behind closed doors when he's in a situation, but seems like a guy that would just be like, look, man, you're not getting it done. End of the line.
Yep.
Okay, so there's probably, but he is a family guy, so I do think he tries to give the benefit of the doubt as long as he can, and that's really kind of what's gotten him in this trouble.
Yep.
Go.
So let's go back. A couple years ago, Falcons made a coaching change. They have had a long stay with their GM, Dimitrov, who is a Patriots guy. He did a very good job, I think, of building up a Falcons offense. They had some very prolific scoring guys for a long time. They went as far as the Super Bowl, and I think their feeling was, they just missed out. The whole Kyle Shanahan choking at the end because he didn't keep his foot on the gas thing that we heard about San Francisco originated in Atlanta. Shanahan is a talented guy. Obviously, he got his shot out there and has done some good things with San Francisco. So in comes Dan Quinn. Now, here's kind of the thing. We had a Matt Ryan. You're removed from the Super Bowl. They went and got a guy like Sarkisian who had some issues, some drinking issues, and ended up costing him his job here in Atlanta. The offense, well, actually, that was before Atlanta, but what ended up happening is he came in and he wasn't able to really spark the team. So I'm going to kind of fast forward just to kind of get through this. But last year, there was a lot of questions about this team going into last year. And they allowed their head coach, which is kind of an anomaly, I think, in the NFL with how quick people are pulling the trigger. He allowed him to retool his entire staff. This included bringing in a brand new offensive coordinator, a brand new defensive coordinator, and a brand new special teams coordinator. That's a major shift in a team. So they gave this coach, believing that the lead guy was able to, in essence, really just pin it on all of his staff. And so in comes next year. Now, this is a team that had Matt Ryan, who, while is not really known as the game winner kind of guy, has put up, at many years, had an MVP season, put up, your big fantasy numbers. You got a guy like Julio Jones who can still get it done and is talented. They had guys like Devontae Freeman who started out of the block pretty fast and well for them offensively. As recently as last year, had kind of an emergence of a tight end in Austin Hooper. This team was 1-7 last year, and they look like a legit 1-7 team. They weren't a team losing games that they shouldn't have lost. And then they went and beat the New Orleans Saints.
And
they
beat the Niners too, didn't they? I think they did.
I don't even.
They did, but they did out in San Francisco.
Yes,
it came down to
it
might even been overtime. It was right at the end of the game.
It was overtime.
It's what the fuck.
So they went from looking at the number one draft pick midway through the season. They were well in contention for that. Won some games at the end of the year. And we have a Falcons fan who has the tickets to the game. We were talking to him, and we were like, this is bad news because this is the type of resurgence that got a team that 2 years ago should have started the retool.
Yep.
And they didn't. and this is what happens when you don't. And almost we were like, oh, worst thing possible could be do they keep their head coach? I mean, he was as good as fired halfway through the season. And this guy managed to save his job. And not only him, but his GM. Now, here's where we are. We're $4 million in cap space. We're a team with a well past his prime quarterback. You've got a valuable receiver in Julio Jones, which many of us were clamoring for them to trade him because they needed to begin this rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot this year, and I know that Falcon fans would, just not want to see that. But I do think that some of them are starting to come to reality.
It would have been better for their team.
That's right now, if you look at one guy on the team that could command some value that you might be able to get a lot for, save some money on, and be able to rebuild this thing.
Yep.
It's Julio Jones. There's nobody else. And again, I think much to the chagrin of a lot of Falcon fans who would hate to see a guy like that go because he's such a great player, would hate to see he's a Alabama guy, so SEC, Southeast. There's a lot of love for him, whether you're a Falcons fan or an Alabama fan, that he's here. You don't want to see him go. But again, I think now there's a lot of them who are like, I mean, I guess that's what we have to do. The true Falcon fans know better. Yep. And, and let's not get it twisted. Julio, as great as he is not getting any younger. A lot of people are looking at A.J. Green because he's coming off that injury. Like, he's one of the hot free agents out there, but what's he going to be off an injury? And he's getting older. Well, Julio and AJ are the same. They came out the same year.
Yep.
Okay. So my point is this: how long is it going to take to rebuild this thing to where he is not past his prime? Where you could still get the best out of a guy like Julio, and I just don't know that they can do it quick enough to take advantage of that. And again, thus why I think they need to part with that. But obviously, we have a different situation.
So let me give you an idea of this. This is going to be their challenge. And I was looking at some other teams and realizing, you always hear about there's a fatal flaw that can happen, and you hear about this a lot of times where they renegotiate a player's contract to clear cap space. And how they do that, in essence, is they push money back. So one of the things they did in the first couple of years of Matt Ryan's big deal that he just signed, or didn't just sign, but had signed a few years ago, was they pushed his money back. And how did they do that? Because they wanted to keep Julio Jones.
Correct.
And they pushed that money back. So they have currently 7 guys that are going to be a $10 million plus cap hit.
Holy mac.
Okay?
That's a lot. That's $100 million with 10 guys.
Yeah. Now you hear about guys, if they cut this guy.
And what is the cap? Well, they're probably bumping up.
They're going to say it's about 200
but still, half of it tied up in 10 guys, and how many guys do you have to pay on the roster?
It's probably more than half because actually Matt Ryan's at $24 million,
so
Julio Jones at 20.
So that's
here's
not great.
Here's the worst
financials.
part about doing this is if Matt Ryan were to be cut this year, you would save, in essence, $24 million cap hit. Here's the problem. He has $69 million worth of dead money, which means to you don't really save $24 million. This year, $70 million would get charged against your cap. So you would, in essence, just take, 40+% of your cap for a player that's not even there. Julio Jones, and here's the problem. What's the no trade value for Matt Ryan?
Okay.
No trade value.
Okay, and I think Matt, I've watched him since he was at BC. He has been everything they've needed him to be. Good quarterback. But again, he's quarterback. He may not be as old as Eli and stuff, but he's not much younger. And maybe he's just hitting that wall earlier where it's just, But before you go forward, can you start over with Matt Ryan again and repeat what you just said?
Yep.
Because it is just, if it doesn't make your eyes pop out, especially if you're a Falcon fan, then you just don't pay attention to enough football. Go over Matt Ryan again.
Okay, this year, Matt Ryan has a $24 million cap hit, 24 plus.
And we said right now, as it sits, their cap space is $4 million.
Right. So if they were to cut Matt Ryan this year, The dead money for Matt Ryan would be $69 million. So let me do the math for you. Matt Ryan alone, if they cut him with $4 million in cap space. So you're looking at, what is that, 69? That's $45 million of dead money. You got $4 million in space. It means you would have to cut positive. This is without dead money. You'd have to cut $41 million worth of salary this year. Now, just to give you an idea, Julio Jones is I believe
that's all their free agents.
Yeah, Julio Jones is tradable.
Sign a single one.
Yeah, but Julio Jones is tradable. But if they were to cut him, $59 million in dead money. Now, if you trade him, you trade away that dead money.
Right.
But the whole thing is he needs to play 3 more years. I think teams would believe they could get 3 more years of value out of Julio Jones, and that's why we were saying that's a guy you got to move. Jake Matthews, their left tackle, $16 million cap hit. If they cut him this year, which he won't be cut because next year would make him cuttable, he would be a $16 million cap hit. He would bring $19 million worth of dead money, so you'd be negative still with him. Desmond Trufant would actually be a gain. He's a $15 million cap hit, but he's $10 million in dead money. So you would only save $5 million, so that would take that to $9 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, for high-profile players and with these new contracts and the guaranteed money, there's going to be high numbers. And not that Dez isn't a good player, but you're talking about, he's not like the best corner in the league. He's their number one corner. He's had injury problems. $10 million for a guy like that is ridiculous.
Yep.
A lot of freaking money. That's a lot.
Yep.
You might expect for an average something like that on another team. Maybe it's like under $5 million in dead money.
Yep.
It's double what you might see on average elsewhere out there.
Yep.
Sorry.
No.
And I'm not even a Falcon fan, but I live here, and it just blows me away.
So now we're moving down. I guess I'm not Grady Jarrett. He would be a big hit, but I don't believe he is.
You can't move him. He's the linchpin of the defense.
He's valuable at his $12 million a year. So Marcus Trufant, again, we're talking about the top players on this team. Marcus Trufant is the number fourth highest cap hit, and he's the first player you got a savings on. Grady Jarrett wouldn't be a savings. You would lose another $13 million. $15 million. A guy that is probably going to get cut, and I'm just doing it based off simple math, is Alex Mack. He's got a $10.5 million cap hit, and he's a good center, but he's a little older, but not. I don't think he's super old.
No, but if you do that, then their backup center Wes Schweitzer is a free agent.
Yeah.
So then you got to focus on re-signing him.
Yep. He's a $10 million cap hit, but with only $2.5 million in dead money. That's still a big number with a team that's this cash strapped. So again, so right now we're barely struggling to get to $15 million of available cap space with the 2 cuts that don't actually hurt you this year. Next one, Deion Jones, linebacker, $10 million. He's got $14 million in dead money, so he's not a cut. Devontae Freeman, from a skill standpoint, would be a cut this year. He has certainly fallen off. He's $9.5 million, but you still have $6 million in dead money, so you're only gaining $3 million with him. Ricardo Allen, their safety, he's $7 million. You could gain $3 million by cutting him. But again, if I add those 3 guys up, you got to field a full team here. That's in your top 10. Keanu Neal is probably one of their best secondary guys. He's probably getting cut because he's $6.5 million and he has no dead money.
Yep.
So that one might just be a cap casualty, but we'll see. So here I am in their top 11 players, and while you could cut 15, 25, 35, and what is that? 35, $41 million. You could cut $41 million of cap space today, but the dead money that goes right back into that is going to be 10, 12, 18, $22 million. So basically,
you're saving $18 million.
Yeah. So you're basically,
and you're losing how many players? Like how many? Did you say?
4.
4.
And you've got to replace them. Well, the problem is you're going to have to replace them with minimum contract guys.
Yep.
So
less talented.
Yeah, so you right now, like
Developmental.
this is
Draft.
This is the challenge, and you're talking about a team that is going to get up. Like what were the? I remember. Okay, well here we'll use Carolina. Carolina's at 34 million without any cuts right now. You're not even going to get up to that level with your cuts.
Yeah.
In available cap space, and somehow this is a team again that was not a playoff team. And they've got to figure out how they're going to do it. Now, mind you, picking at 16, they'll probably be okay in the slotting of the first-round pick. Like, it's not going to slaughter there. It's not like it's going to take, a third of their cap money, but it's going to still take a cut out of there. This is a team that there's nowhere for them to go.
Well, if you remember, I think it was either last year or the year before, Arthur Blank actually came out to, general manager and coach and said, I think they had like 7 picks and said, we need 4 or 5 of those 7 to be able to start on this team.
Yep.
To their good fortune, I think they came pretty close to that. And those were picks like Deion Jones and Campbell, who's, I think, a free agent. Yep, Devondre Campbell. Austin Hooper. Guys that were able to pitch in that are now free agents.
And this speaks of nothing of re-signing the guys coming
this year, Arthur Blank's going to be like, you have to hit every single pick. You have to hit every single pick. Because if you don't, we're already in deep doo-doo. The only thing that might salvage the season is to be able to find, starters with every pick.
Yep.
Or guys that can definitely play significant roles. And I mean, how often does that happen that you go 90 plus to 100% on your draft picks? Yep. It doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking at, okay, so they've got, just to give you an idea, they've got Vic Beasley, contributor. He's gone.
Yeah,
but he has not played well. But
No.
understand, he was a starter on this defense.
Yeah, he was
so
a first-round
you're gonna have
pick.
you're gonna have a giant hole.
At outside linebacker, they have him at DN, but he played a lot of outside linebacker and DN. So
this team has one of the better punters in the league in Bosher. He might be older, but the problem now is you can't even solidify that. You got to worry about it because, well, it may not be a huge hit. It's
money that you may have to
money
recoup.
You're going to spend. You've got
you may have to recoup that because he is a good punter. He's not going to go for less money. You may have to find a young punter cheap. You may have to cut him and go draft one with your last pick.
Yeah,
but at least maybe that punter can start for you.
Yeah, and you got Austin Hooper is
he's
gone.
I think he's gone.
Well, they're not going to be able to compete for him. He's going to be high dollar.
Yeah, I tell you something. The rest of the league has got to be looking at this Falcons situation and just pulling the entire roster with, like you just did, and just salivating, waiting to pounce when these cuts start to happen because it could be one of the biggest seasons for a team to have cap casualties, the phrase you use where they just have no other choice, and that's it. They have to cut them, and these guys are just out there.
The problem that they are going to run into, and I don't want to say that I'm an expert and certainly understand this, but remember we talked about over a 3-year period, which I got to believe they're on the high end of this with their cap number, but they also have to pay out salaries. Like you cut the guys and you get dead money. You're not actually paying a salary. Remember the rule is, and this was one of the changes in the CBA, is you got to be 89% of you have to pay 89% of your cap. You have to be paying in salary on a 3-year average. It goes up to 90% with the new CBA. Dead money is just like you're hurting.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're paying. So this is the kind of thing I don't know how the Falcons do this with I'll be honest with you.
I don't know what they're going to do.
The amazing part of this would be, I would say, that they're probably going to end up with Trevor Lawrence because I think this team, not because of tanking, may just literally have no talent. This is a let's just be honest. This is a bad football team.
Yeah, their
It's
defense.
a bad football team.
They I know they won the game against New Orleans and San Francisco, but it really was just like an anomaly. And I'm not saying you should tank, but that, they screwed themselves by winning those games. Unfortunately, because it got their coach re-signed. They lost slots in the draft, and it's just, I don't know the last time I've seen quite a conundrum for a team in this position of the offseason with free agency and the draft upcoming. Like, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, backup quarterback, or well, I think he's third strings. Matt Sims is free agent. But, I mean, Matt Ryan's not getting any younger, man. He suffered some injury this year. So you got to have somebody that's going to be able to come in and back his ass up.
Well,
I think
here's going to be the interesting.
They brought Shaw back.
Let me throw this at you. If you're the worst team in the NFL, next year, and you get the number 1 pick, say Trevor Lawrence knocks it out of the park like everybody expects, goes number 1, you're going to still have.
Are you going to let that kid get killed coming in because you can't put pieces around him?
You're not, but here's your other problem. You're still going to have $40+ million in dead money from Matt Ryan. So does this mean the kid – so think about your quarterback cost right now.
Yeah.
Because his number is still going to be high because he's the number 1 pick in the draft. With Matt Ryan, you can't cut Matt Ryan. So – how do you have that much money in your quarterback room?
Can you even do it?
Are you ever getting better?
Can you do it? Can you ever do it? Is it even worth it? I mean, as crazy it would sound as if they had the first pick, but had to pass up on a Trevor Lawrence just because financially it's just not going to work. That's crazy,
I mean,
man. That's when you have to drop back.
This is what I think is going to happen. The NFL has allowed. And they didn't used to, but I believe the NFL allows the retaining of salary, right? Doesn't the NFL allow that?
I think so, yeah.
So what I see the Falcons doing is trading some of these guys and getting some level of cap release. But again, I don't know how many takers there are. I got to be honest. I don't think there's any market this year for a Matt Ryan. Any at that number. No. I don't even care if they retain half his salary. I don't think there's any market.
The Giants have some money, and I wouldn't be sad to see them go after a Julio.
No, for Matt Ryan.
I know that.
Julio,
but that's who's next.
Julio, I do believe they could get off the books clean. I believe they could. I believe he is. People still look at him. It would be a team like I could see him going to like a San Francisco if they got the
Giants.
There's teams.
I mean,
that
we've
will
got take, you got pieces on that offense that he could flourish. Yeah. He might not. He's still going to command double coverages, but it's going to open up things for a Saquon Barkley. You got Evan Ingram and Shepard, and then you got the young kid Darius Slayton. I mean, he could fit in nicely with a team like us.
Yeah, you could see
and
somebody.
We have some money.
Maybe Jake Matthews, even though he's a negative cap hit, could be a take for somebody on the idea that you get control for 2 years. He's a big cap hit number this year, but he's relatively inexpensive next year. So that's one where they could gain off of him. Trufant, is somebody willing to eat a little bit of the dead money in the salary? But the reality is
they could split it. It doesn't always mean that if another team picks them up, they eat all the dead money. I mean, that right. It was like the Beckham deal. We ate some of that money.
Yeah, they could say, "Listen, you'll trade you, but we'll eat $4 million of the dead money." But here's the thing: this is what I'm going to say is Matt Ryan. I don't think is tradable. We've already discussed Julio Jones, but is there a market for guys like Trufant, Jake Matthews, Deion Jones is another one that is strong enough that somebody's willing to take a major portion of that?
Trufant and Jones, yes. Okay. I don't know about Matthews. I don't think he's that great. I think he's a guy that you could almost throw him over to right or kick him in the guard, and he might be better served. I don't know that he's a premier left tackle in this league.
I think they'd be better off. I think like a Ricardo Allen, I think's got more value in that his dead money is less than what he's owed in the sense that could they get somebody to take on his whole contract? But this is the challenge that the Falcons have is they're going to need other teams to play ball with them.
Yep.
And Julio Jones is the only talent that is so spectacular.
That doesn't really, based on everything we're talking about, if they do find a team or teams to play ball. The leverage that they have is not good. It's definitely not in their favor, and they're going to have to succumb to a lot of things that might be ugly just to get them where they need to be.
Yeah, and I guess I got to look at it and I go, I'm pretty much on board that they can't resign a vast majority of their free agents at any sort of increase.
No.
Here's the thing is, with the $4 million right now, they can't even decide in their draft picks without making moves.
Right.
So I don't know what they're going to do. We can talk about what they need. The whole problem is they need to cut cap space, and that in and of itself is going to make it where it's like, I don't know what your draft plan is because I don't even know what room
you probably want to
have.
find a guy that could take over for Matt Ryan eventually, but you might have to spend a higher draft pick, and that's also going to command more money.
Yeah. Now I will say this.
Or do you wait and try to pick someone up late that you might have thought you found, Tom Brady, a diamond in the rough, which, I don't know, man. They are FUCT fucked.
They are. And so I hate to be down and out about it, but it's, there's got to be some way to clear space in some ways that I'm not familiar with, because I don't know how they could get themselves in this situation and
Bad
still be keeping
bad GMs, I'm not a big believer in their general manager.
Not looking at this.
When they re-signed him a couple years ago, I didn't know that was the right move.
Yeah, I don't
think he's awful, but this is just going. I think he's a guy that probably thought in his mind, especially when they were in the Super Bowl a few years ago, like, we'll outlast this.
Yep.
We'll outrun it somehow.
Yep.
And quite the opposite, my friend. It's caught up with you and bit you in the boo-boo, and I think he was just trying to push, but the proof is in the pudding. And he just pushed everything out, hoping that, they would make good in the meantime and all would be all right. But
I envision, I think what probably will happen is, if Julio Jones gets traded, I'd be surprised only because I've heard no buzz around this.
None.
But I think he's likely gone in the middle of the season because I see this team's roster being filled with a fair amount of undrafted free agents, and that's not a recipe for success. I guess what I look at when I see the Falcons is you're 3 years away. You're 3 years away. You're 3 years away from seeing the vision of what's next in my mind because
Matt Ryan.
Because they
Matt
have
Ryan.
to. Yeah, they have to.
Matt Ryan.
You have to see how you clean out the cupboard first before you go to the store and restock the shelves. You know. And this is. I don't know if I've ever really seen something quite like this.
That's what I said. This is just unbelievable.
It is.
And
I hate to say that to you,
epic
Atlanta.
Proportions.
I don't want Atlanta. I'm not an Atlanta fan as a front
but
runner, but I hate to
games.
see.
Yeah.
I hate to see my local team.
Yeah, suck balls.
Be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, we don't want that, man. Like, even if they, they're, it's fun even if I'm not a fan, it's fun when the local teams win. And I'm a football guy, so those are the teams I really would not be a fan of when it comes to the Braves and the Hawks. I enjoy watching them. Yeah, that's fine. I'm not, I'm an all sports guy, but I'm not as passionate as I am with the football. And I've lived here long enough, so I think it gives me enough. Considering I've lived here longer than anywhere else, that I can say I'm a little bit of a fan. But in terms of the Falcons, I'm not a big fan, but I don't hate them, and I don't want to see this.
Who's the old guy on the radio that's with Douglas, Hugh Douglas, John Fricky. I want to say Cricky, but that was the other guy.
Local radio. He's actually a really nice guy.
This guy, God love him because he's a self-admitted homer. He is. He loves the Falcons. And I remember him listening in the car before this season. He was talking about, I think this team is Super Bowl or bust.
And, Hugh Douglas, who was a career Philadelphia Eagle loves to poke at him.
Oh, yeah.
Loves to poke at him.
I'm just gonna, for the entertainment value, listen to when the Falcons offseason is kind of coming to wraps and they're getting into camp. I'm just gonna love to hear where he thinks this team is at.
Those guys are, what are they? The morning show on 92.9 FM, The Game here.
Yep.
It's a, what are they? They're a Entercom property, I believe, and probably one of the better sports stations in the market. But yeah. Yeah, those guys are all right. Fricky, I've met both of them, but I've met him a few times. He is an older guy, but he is just he's like the salt of the earth, that
yeah.
guy. You got to feel for him here.
Yeah, this is going to be the kind of thing where, unfortunately, the thing I see happening, which on the field that's going to be the problem, is you're going to get the limited talent they have start really itching to figure out how to get out of town. And I think Julio's going to be gone because I think Julio's going to be like, I ain't staying. I'm not ending my career on this nightmare. And because he's got the value, but it's sad. It's sad because it's not that I have like this distaste for any of these players. I mean, I'm not the hugest Matt Ryan fan because I just don't think he's the big game winner. But at the same time,
him because he was Boston College guy.
Yeah, but remember when they were number 2 in the country and we went and whipped them in Boston. But anyway, this is the kind of thing I hate to say it, but this is the one team where I don't know how they're going to get out of it.
It was real ugly. I mean, sans the couple games they won that were just, in my mind, an anomaly, or the other teams playing down to the competition and got bitten in the nub. This team all season, this past season, was a borderline joke. I mean, their defense was not good. They couldn't run the ball. They were down to like third string running backs. If you play fantasy football, people thought they had something with some of these guys.
Yep.
Yeah, no. The line wasn't doing a great job. I think Alex Mack is a great guy. He's long in the tooth, man. And at center, I just don't think he is worth what he was when they picked him up, and they really needed it. And now it's gone. And they weren't good this year. And this
1-7 and finished 7-9, and they're more 1-7.
Oh my gosh, what are they going to do? Because it's not like they have anywhere they can improve. They have to get worse, unfortunately, because of finances. So if that isn't the GM's problem or fault, then I don't know whose is.
Yep.
I don't know how much longer owner Arthur Blank will stand of it. I've said it a few times before.
Too long. He's already stood for it.
I said it a few times before. The fact that the United first season in won the MLS Cup last year might have been a problem for the Falcons this year because there's complacency. I felt like he was like, I got a winner over here, and we're paying the and maybe just like, okay, we'll keep it going for one more season. Well, when he really should have had more of a focus there on how he's going to get his NFL team where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think, Atlanta also suffers from the transplant situation, and you and I are two examples of that, where they've struggled to keep a sports following. I think the great thing that helped the Atlanta United, number one, was winning. You mentioned that already. But also, we have a significant Latino population, and soccer is a major, major draw in that population. And it was something in the States that is not very strong overall, comparatively speaking, to a football or baseball even. And it got a really big following, and it's truly what I think is a local following, even though those are transplants, but it's a local following, and they're the one team that has it. Even the Braves, I mean, they've struggled. I went to games 1 and 5 against the Cubs in 2003. I could get a ticket with no problem off the street.
After the Braves, that 14-year pennant run ended.
That's amazing what they had. And they had some phenomenal talent on those teams.
It was a lot of fun, but I mean, it's
going to hurt them.
And it's just. I don't know. I don't know what the guy's going to do. I can't imagine that he's going to stand for it any longer because I think United are doing good. I haven't followed them as closely this year, but I don't think they're doing it. I know they lost a lot of their talent last year. And kudos to Arthur Blank because a few years before the United came to town, there was like a friendly game with Mexico and somebody else. And it was like they didn't close off the top, and it was packed, sold out. Yeah. To your point, the Latino population, and he saw a business opportunity.
Yeah, and they did a friendly with like one of the Italian teams and I think a Spanish league team.
Crazy crowds, and he took advantage of a business opportunity. Unfortunately, like I said, maybe the United last year winning made him a little soft towards the end of the season when he should have been paying attention to this team a little harder, and I don't know. I just can't imagine he's going to stand for it any longer, but this is it'll definitely be an interesting situation.
So keep an eye out. Feel good that in the NFL, 3 years, even with a team in this much of a hole, with the right moves, you can get out of it. We're just probably going to be watching some ugly football for a few years. But if they do the smart thing, and the smart thing is just clean up the mess as best you can. It's going to take longer. Hang in there, Falcons fans. Sorry that this one we beat this drum hard, but it really is important just to note how tough of a position they're in, because I think they're in the worst position of any team in the NFL, and it's not even close.
Yep. So you got to be aware of that. But that'll wrap it for the Falcons. That one went longer, but I think we needed to. And we will finish up the free agency conversation in NFC South with the division-winning New Orleans Saints.